So it is a mouthful, automating IoT with BPMN. But the subtitle is always, why would you do that? Because I get asked that. First of all, I just have to say that I am not Jonas. That's probably obvious by now, but I'm filling in for him. So why would anybody want to do this? IoT is really quite ready for automation. People have been doing IoT for a while now. It turns out that something like 70% of IoT proof of concepts never turn into actual production. Most IoT projects fail. And I have a whole lot of reasons why that happens. But one reason is that people are not getting the business benefits from IoT. And one of the ways you can get business benefits back out of your IoT deployment is with automation. So how it started, I've been doing IoT for a very long time. Back even before Oracle owned this, back when it was Sun Microsystems. We should have a moment of silence for Sun. And when I was in negotiations for the job that I'm in now at Camunda, I was told very clearly, this is not an IoT company. You will not be doing IoT. And I said, okay, that's fine. I don't need to. I've been doing it for a long time. I don't need that. And then every time I would meet with one of the executives at the company, they would say, oh, you used to do IoT. That's really interesting. And I kept saying, don't encourage me, don't encourage me. And I kept going to my new boss and saying, they keep saying this. And she finally said, well, go do it. So since nobody listened, I did it. And I had been at the company for about 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, when they came to me and said, do something fun for Halloween. Okay, I don't know what your software does. I don't know how to use it. And you want me to do something cool for Halloween that we can put on our blog and that we can do something with. Sure, why not? They always say, write about what you know. So hammer, nail, I started working on IoT. We were, of course, this was the fall of 2020, deep in COVID times. Nobody was going anywhere. Nobody went outside. Halloween was coming. Nobody wanted to answer the door for little kids. Little kids didn't want to come to the door. Everybody was infectious. So again, hammer, nail, I'm going to do something that is going to allow me to give candy to kids without actually having to talk to them. And don't get me wrong, I love kids. I have a bunch of my own. But kids are disease vectors, right? And especially in COVID, it's like, nope, stay away. So I know nothing about this. I know absolutely nothing about this. I've got to do something very quickly. I've got to keep it simple. So I'm going to write it in Go, even though at the time Go was not a supported language. So again, everything looks like a nail when you have one hammer. And I actually had two. I had IoT and Go. So I was going to make it fit, round peg in a square hole. So here's the idea. Kid rings the doorbell. It takes a picture of the kid. I get to evaluate the picture in my web browser, and I can, based on my evaluation, it awards candy to the kid that rang the doorbell. And great, I can do this without even being home, right? I could do this from here. It could be Halloween at home, and I could still be dispensing candy. This is a great idea. So, build a doorbell that takes a picture. I know there are millions of them out there and you can buy one, but why buy one when you can build one? Build a candy dispenser. Automate the whole thing. Somewhere in there, something else happens. We get VC funding, we're revenue, and we make tons of money. Well, the revenue's not really necessary anymore, right? And then just today on LinkedIn, somebody posted this. Apparently, in a Danish supermarket, there is a booth that will take a picture and it won't open the door unless you're smiling. I was like, I so missed that boat. I was so close. Anyway, So I just happened to have all this stuff lying around. I had an ESP32 camera, which is a little camera board. I had push buttons. I had LEDs. I didn't have a candy dispenser, but I could build one because I have this thing in my office, and it's about 400 pounds of nothing but electronic parts lying around. And it drives my wife crazy, but she just doesn't come in there, so she doesn't know it's there. So start with hardware. First of all, never start with hardware when you're doing IoT. Bad idea, never start with hardware. I have a whole talk on never start with hardware too, but I won't do that one today. So I came up with this schematic for what the thing was gonna look like, and then I built it, and I think I was pretty close. I have one of them up here somewhere. No, I don't, but I'll get one. I made it much smaller, but much uglier. So that's my version of a Ring doorbell where you can push the button on the end and it'll take a picture of you. So candy dispenser. I needed something else automatic, wireless, that I could put out there that would do something to dispense candy. And so I built it. And I came pretty close to my schematic. I love when that happens. That's my favorite part. I'm terrible at 3D CAD, so I didn't design it myself because I'd still be doing that 2 years later if I had done it myself. But I went out and I found a candy dispenser on one of the free 3D websites, and I printed it, and it's a little awkward. I actually brought it with me, but the airline lost my bag, and in finding my bag, they decided to destroy everything in it. So that is now, well, there's still plastic, but it's not all in one piece anymore. But it worked. It's ugly, but it worked. So where's the BPMN in this? How did I automate this, right? I could have just done this where somebody pushes a button and candy comes out, but that wouldn't have been any fun. There wouldn't have been any automation in that. So I made this really complicated task, right? So the picture gets taken and somebody has to evaluate the picture. That somebody would be me. And then if they're wearing a costume, then they get a piece of candy added to their bag. And then I go and rate the costume, and if the costume's not terrible, they get more candy. And then I guess how old they are, and if they're under 5, they get tons of candy because little kids get tons of candy because I don't have to put them to bed that night. And if they're over 15, they get nothing because they should really get a job and buy their own candy. So based on all of these things, it all automates and candy comes out the other end. Perfect, except it took a lot to make it happen. So it turns out that it was actually a dog treat dispenser and not a candy dispenser. So this was the trial run. So there I have the picture. Yeah, they were wearing a costume. You saw him, he was wearing the hat. That's Bruno, by the way. So I had to open it. There's some problems. Just remember, I didn't know how this software worked.
Oh, look how cute he is in his hat. So.
Oh, look. It's got one piece of candy. I don't really need to see the costume. Is it a terrible costume? It's not too bad. It's a great costume. All right, we'll submit that. And what do you know? We get to decide how old he is. I knew he was under 5 because I'd just gotten him the year before. And wait for it.
And as you see, he gets
dog treats come out.
A bunch of treats.
So it wasn't actually working for kids, but you know what? It was designed for dog treats. Dogs are acceptable stand-in for kids. Don't try to fight them. I have 2 of them. They're absolutely useless in a fight. That's highly active for both of them. Don't ever let anybody tell you that Rottweilers are vicious dogs. Don't stand for it. So I decided I could make this better, right? All of those decisions were coded into the business model itself. I did not know this at the time because I was brand new to the company. That's a terrible idea. Don't do that, right? But I didn't know any better. It makes it really hard to maintain. I had actually put JavaScript in the business model itself. This is a bad thing, right? It also took way too much human interaction. I had to go to the form, I had to claim the job, I had to say, yeah, they're wearing a costume. And then I had to go do it again and say, yeah, it's a great costume. And then I had to go do it again and say, they're under 5 or they're over 15 or whatever, right? Way too much interaction. So I decided I could do better. So I collapsed the model down to only one human task. I put everything on one form, and then I put all the decisions into a DMN decision table so that I didn't even have to make any decisions other than do my ratings, and it would figure it out for me. And there was no inline code here. So the decision table, I could change the decision table and it would change everything all at once. Much easier. So how is this actually relating to automating the IoT for business purposes? Probably sitting here wondering, it's not Halloween, why am I doing this? Why are we talking about this? This is a business model that is directly executable. So I could deploy this business model to the engine and actually run it. And anytime I need to make changes to how that decision is made, somebody can go in and change that decision table. And it doesn't require somebody who knows how to code an embedded device or code something else to change that decision table. They can just go in and say, this rule is changed to this, deploy the thing, and everything's changed. So it's allowing the business person at Halloween, to actually change how the thing works, as opposed to, I decide I need to change this, I gotta go find the engineer that built it, and I've gotta get him to go change 50 lines of code, and then we've gotta redeploy it to all the devices and hope it works. No, I can do it in the business model. So I actually used 2 decision tables. One, is it a costume? Because if it's not a costume, if there's not wearing a costume, you don't get any candy, end of decision, right? But then down here, I'm going to take into consideration the age and the costume rating, and I'm going to determine how many Skittles they get. And then in this top one, I'm going to either give them the Skittles that we decided down there, or I'm going to give them nothing because they're not wearing a costume. I'm hard that way. You don't wear a costume, you don't get anything. Okay. But I did say automating it, so we can automate the whole process, the entire process, and take all of the decisions out of it if we just move the goalposts a little. And I could have not moved the goalpost, but I didn't have time to train a whole AI model on recognizing the age of children and whether or not they're wearing costumes, and especially the age of children when they're wearing costumes, right? If you have time and want to train that model for me, I'm more than happy to accept it so that I can put it in here. But instead, I made an even shorter task with no human interactions and a single decision table. So the picture is taken, I submit it to Google's Vision AI API, which comes back with some information about the person that's in the picture. First of all, it tells me if there's a person in the picture. And if there's not a person in the picture, no candy. If there is a person in the picture, it tells me who they are and sort of what their happiness, their sorrow, their joy, and their surprise, and it awards candy based on those things. And I came up with a highly proprietary formula, which was completely random, to decide on how to do that, right? So I take those 4 inputs from Google, and I have these proprietary formulas in my tables, and then at the end, I get to decide how many. At the time it was dispensing Skittles. It turns out it works better with M&Ms, but either way. And again, there's that, is it a picture? So if Google comes back and says there's no person in this picture, then we can just opt out and be done. Right? So now I've gone from a highly intensive process where somebody has to go and evaluate 3 different forms, and it takes forever, and it takes a lot of human intervention, to something where I've just automated it and I can go on vacation for Halloween and not worry about it. Somebody comes and pushes the button and they either get candy or they don't, right? And not only do I not have to be home, which I could do in the first model, but I don't have to interact with it at all. So I am using Google image processing. It was actually really easy. Oh, went right past that. There we go. Again, I did all of this in Go because I was using a lot of Go at the time. And Google will give you back a data structure that tells you with a number how joyful the person looks, how surprised they look, how angry they look, and how sad they look. Simple. Bunch of numbers. And I could then go into my table and input all of that. So all talk and no demo is no fun at all. Before I get into the demo, I was actually going to do it with the treat dispenser and the whole bit, with the hardware and all of that. And I'm not going to do that because A, the airline destroyed my treat dispenser, and B, because I've done that demo so many times that I'm pretty sure it works. And the CEO of a company I used to work for said, if it works every time, it's not a demo, it's a product, you should ship it. 2 weeks ago, at Camunda, we announced our new flagship product, Camunda 8, which is a cloud-based decision engine. It's all cloud-based. It was announced 2 weeks ago and rolled out. So in the last 2 weeks, I have moved everything over to run on the cloud. There were a couple of you maybe in the audience that were in the workshop that I did yesterday, where the people that came got this little bag full of hardware, and they got to build their own camera doorbell and automate this process all the way through with all 3 of those stages, from the one with lots of forms to the one where it's completely automated. We didn't get through everything because it was a lot for a 2-hour workshop. I apologize for that. But we're going to go through it right now. So here's the first exercise that we did, which is really simple. See, you can't do inline scripts anymore. First of all, it was a terrible idea. So now you can't do terrible ideas. We won't let you do terrible ideas because they're terrible ideas. So everything is an external task. And so I built this external task that just adds 1 or adds a number to a number. Really simple, right? And so it adds 1, then it adds 4, and then it adds 5. And if I deploy this diagram and then start this instance, I can then go and I can see it in real time. And again, that's not just a drawing of a business process. It's actually the business process that is executable as code. So you can see that it's stuck here in the add 1. There's my token. You can see the blue arrow that says where it came from. And if I now go and start my little worker, what do you know? Very quickly, it came in with 0, it added 1, it exited with 1, then it picked up the job again, it added 4, and it exited with 5, and then it came back and it added 5, and it exited with 10. And if we go back to the business model, you'll see that the token has gone all the way through, and at the end, the value is 10. Simple, right? Really easy. The Go code to do it is fairly lightweight. We have a officially supported library to do it, so it didn't take me long at all, especially because I'm pretty happy with Go, and that was that. So that was the first one that I tried. You might recognize this. Wait, is that the... Nope. So this is actually even the stripped down one, right? I evaluate the picture. If it's a costume, I add one. Then I evaluate the costume. And I go through the whole thing. And where it says add 0, add 1, add 2, I'm just using that same little addition program that I wrote before. So it will pick it up and it'll add however many I tell it to in here. So I can deploy that diagram. And I'll start that. And since I don't have a picture to something to take a picture, I'm going to actually handwrite the JSON here. Now, is it a JPEG or is it a PNG? I don't know. Hold on. And we're just going to make it a little easier. So we're going to be able to actually add some variables to start it off with. And we'll start that instance. And if I typed it right, there we are. I have to go evaluate the picture. So I'll go look at my task list. And I should have a task there, right, to evaluate that picture. And there it is. And there's my picture. And again, I have to open a separate tab to go see it. Oh, it's a PNG. There I am. Do we think I'm wearing a costume? Sure. That looks like a costume to me. And now, if we wait for it, it added some candy and it moved along. And you can see that down here, yeah, it's a costume. There's a picture. I added a piece of candy. So we can go through this whole thing, but that's how this works, right? It's fairly straightforward. So let's do something a little harder. Let's skip all the way to the end and do this one, right? I'm going to submit the picture. It's going to send it to Google AI. It's going to evaluate the results. And then it's either going to give me no candy or it's going to give me candy. So we'll deploy that diagram. And since I got that wrong, because Google will not award me candy on not a picture. Now, the other one went through so fast because I'd already started that process that was going to go and add candy to it, right? But right now, it's sitting there waiting for that picture to go to Google because I haven't started that process yet. So we'll go down here. And you can see it found the picture. It is a picture, and it's handling that. And if I go back to my diagram, shortly we should see that move along. Unless I broke Google, which is entirely possible. Nope, there it is. It's very unlikely that I'm angry. It's likely that I have joy. It's very unlikely that I'm surprised, and it's very unlikely that I'm sad. I think that was pretty accurate for that picture, right? And what do you know? It went through the evaluation, and I'm going to get 28 pieces of candy. Rock on. I'm going to use that picture all the time. But again, it's sitting here waiting because there's nothing there to handle that yet. But I do have something to handle that. And just so you can see that this is just a MQTT broker. It's just listening to the broker. So when I go over here, and start this little MQTT job, it says it successfully completed the job and dispensed 28 pieces of candy. And what do you know? There's my MQTT broker, which runs back in the States, and it's dispensed 28 pieces of candy. And again, this is all automated. So now somebody comes up and just like that supermarket that somebody sent me, and I am not making this up, sent me that this morning, walks up and pushes a button and it takes their picture and they get candy out the other end. Or the door opens or it doesn't because they look mad, right? Angry people can't come in. However you want to automate that. And so I've taken this process and I've moved it all the way along without having to have any intervention. And just because I like you all, I will let you see my proprietary formulas for how I got 28 pieces of candy. So this is a decision table. Now I designed this decision table in this web modeler. I deployed it from here, and that's what was used to decide how many pieces of candy I got. And so if I look here, angry people actually get a lot of candy. If you're really angry, I multiply that by 5 and I give you that many. Because if you're angry, you probably need candy to make you feel better, right? If you're sad, you should get some candy, depending on how sad you are. Not as much as if you're angry, I guess. I don't know why I did that. If you're surprised, well, I'll divide that by 3 and multiply it by 2. I told you it was a proprietary formula. And finally, this is why I got so much candy. Because I divided it by 4 and then multiplied it by 20 for joy. And joy is the only one that showed up in that picture, right? And all of those numbers feed into up here, and it just adds them all up. Adds them all up and spits them out the other side. And so here's the part that's automating. I don't have to go and write code to change that formula. I can come in here, I can hand this to a business person and say, you manage the candy. And you can change the formula anytime you want. And all you have to do to change the formula is go into this table and change how those numbers are added up and multiplied and divided. However you want, deploy that table to the server, and that's what'll happen from now on, right? So I could have written this doorbell and the candy dispenser and had them talk directly to each other, but if I ever wanted to change how it acted, I would have had to go in and write code and then redeploy the code. And depending on where I was, I would actually have to have physical access to those devices in order to deploy code to them. This way, I don't have to go anywhere near those devices. They can be on your doorbell. And I can change the business process on the back end, and it changes how the candy comes out the other side. And I don't have to be a programmer to do that. I just have to go and change the model, right? And I can add other steps. Well, yeah, I can add a step in there where Google's gonna evaluate the picture, but I still wanna see it and make sure it got it right. And so I can then add another step in there where I'll go back and look at a form and look at the picture, and I can adjust the numbers, right? Because you look really angry, but you also look really sad, so you should get a lot of candy. Or I don't want to give you any candy today because I just don't like you, so I can zero out your number, right? And again, I don't have to write any code. I don't have to deploy any code to any end devices, and I can change how the whole process runs. So that's why I called it automating automation, because IoT is automation. It's how I can automate processes. But putting an automation layer on top of that does not require you to be a programmer or an embedded programmer or some other specialized kind of programmer means that it makes I can get more value out of it because I can change things in how the process executes without changing anything on the devices themselves. I built another project using this same idea, which was to manage a greenhouse. And it takes all sorts of temperature and pressure and CO2 readings, both inside and outside the greenhouse. And then it decides whether it's going to turn the fans on or open the vents, or whether plants need watering based on inside and outside conditions. And as a greenhouse manager, certain plants take certain conditions, and other plants or crops take completely different conditions. And if I want to change the crop in the greenhouse, I don't have to have a programmer go in and fix all the devices. I can just take a different model and deploy that model for that crop that has all of the stuff that I need to do for that already defined. Next season, I'm going back to the first crop, pull that other model off, put this model in, the whole greenhouse runs that way, right? I don't have to go in and change anything out in the field. And as the greenhouse manager, I don't have to know IoT. I don't have to know hardware. All I have to know is how to fill out the right rules to tell it when to turn the fan on, when to turn the fan off, when to open the windows, when to close the windows, and when to water things. Those are things I know as a greenhouse manager, right? And I can automate all of that from a higher level. And that's why I'm talking about this as automating automation. So that was both talk and demo. Sorry about that. I should relabel that slide, shouldn't I? So I always end my talks with some pearls of wisdom that I get from a specific source, my mom. And this was one of her favorites that she used to say to me all the time. My mom is a computer scientist, or was a computer scientist. And so she has all sorts of sort of pearls of wisdom about computers that I wonder where she got them, and I also wonder what's wrong with her, but then she's my mother, so that's why people wonder what's wrong with me. And that's it. Do we have any questions? I'm happy to entertain questions. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, we do. Okay, while someone's typing, I wanted to say thank you very much. And I actually, so I'm not a technologist myself. I'm in the business aspect of things. So I liked that you used the same example all along the way. Helps me out. And then we got a question on the volunteers group, actually. There is a Google Doc, by the way, but it's on the back of your badge. But I do have one, which is how much is Camunda open source usable in production without the cockpit and the extras of the licensed version?
So we now have two products. We have Camunda Platform 7 and Camunda Platform 8. Camunda Platform 7 is entirely open source, and it's an embeddable engine. You can run that anywhere. All of that is free and open source, and you can run everything on it. The enterprise license of that gives you some extras, and I can actually show you a little bit of what that would look like.
Are we going to get another demo?
We might.
Okay. I'll take a seat if you want.
No. So it gets you things like optimize, where I can go and look at where the active incidents are in. So this is a wholly different process. This is a process that I wrote for how to pass a bill in the US House of Representatives, and I'm not sure it should ever have an end because it never really does, but that's a whole other talk. And you can see using this where everything's stuck. It's a vote, where a vote is held, it's all stuck there. So I can use optimize. Optimize and some other things are actually part of the enterprise license on Camunda Platform 7, but everything that those things do is available through our open API. So you can sort of write your own optimize if you want. Camunda Platform 8 is slightly different. It is source available, and you can actually run the SaaS product in your own Kubernetes deployment. I guess I have not tried that. I don't want to. Or you can sign up for our SaaS product of it and use it there. And it comes with Optimize and everything else there. So we really have two separate product lines now. I will also say that we have a desktop modeler where you can draw all these models. That is free and open source. And it is, not only is it free and open source, but I can guarantee you that it's interoperable with almost all of the other BPMN design tools out there. Because I just ran an entire hour-long demo with all the other vendors to make sure that we could pass a single model all around and it would look the same and act the same in everybody's tool.
All right. Well, I am left a little mind-boggled at this particular side, but myself, but you'll have to explain that to me afterwards. I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you for stepping in for Jonas. Yes. We hope that he recovers soon, but I am in a way very happy that you were able to come on and show us all of this. So again, just want to give you another round of applause and thank you very much for coming.
Thank you all. Thank you.